Sometimes in a creative project, the best way forward is to discard a whole lot of the work you've done. And that happened to me with the combat music for Super Dungeon Designer. I always knew that I wanted the music to change during gameplay. I get tired of a 2-minute loop that's the same every time. But there are a lot of ways to achieve variation. Initially, I decided to model music in our game on other games where I was familiar with the change between combat and non-combat music. Specifically, I looked to open-world RPGs like Skyrim and Zelda Breath of the Wild, which do exactly that. There's music for different environments, and there's combat music. And this serves a practical purpose in these games. When the combat music starts, you know there's an enemy nearby, even if you haven't spotted them yet. And, on the other hand, when the combat music stops and the regular music returns, you can be confident that you've cleared the area. We never released the game with music like this, but let me show you a development version so you can see what it sounded like. You may have noticed some awkward moments, in particular the frequent changes between combat and non-combat music. It's especially obvious in the long room where simply walking past an area of the room with enemies nearby triggers the combat music. This kind of thing was unavoidable because the combat music was based on enemies within a certain radius from the player. I tried adjusting the music, adjusting when it's triggered, but gradually it dawned on me that this approach wasn't working. Which was frustrating because I put a lot of work into writing this combat music, and not only this music, but I'd completely written out the piano version of a forest combat theme as well. That never made it into the game and I never orchestrated it, but I quite like it, and so I think as a bonus I'll share that at the end of this video. The fundamental change I needed to make was that the old system was based on something called horizontal sequencing. That means the audio engine has blocks of music and it places one after the other, depending on what's happening in the game. It can also interrupt the block it's currently playing. So we're playing the A section of the forest theme, and then the B section of the forest theme, and then combat starts, and it ends that section, and it starts a section of combat music instead. That's the basic idea, so we're chaining blocks of music one after the other. The new approach was vertical sequencing. That means I have a stack of layers in the music file that are all playing at the same time, except that I can control the loudness of the layers. Some of them are completely muted. And then depending on nearby enemies, the volume levels of those different layers change. I'm going to play through that same dungeon I showed you earlier, but with the new music system. It very quickly became clear that this was the right solution for us. My mistake was, in the games I took inspiration from, Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, there's a very different gameplay rhythm. You spend minutes on end exploring, traveling, and then you come across an enemy camp and you have a discrete encounter that lasts a few minutes of combat, and then that ends and you're back to exploring. Super Dungeon Designer is much more rapid in its changes between combat, puzzling, and exploring, and so we needed a style of music responsiveness that was similarly agile. We stuck with this new approach, and it's in all the music I've added to the game since then, and will be in the music I continue to add as we add new environments. Keep your ears tuned, keep your eyes peeled, keep your nose clear, and see you next time. Before I go though, I do want to play you the forest combat theme, because I quite like how it turned out even if it will never be in the game.